Welcome to Port Huron Statement. This is the Risner story, part 3. We're going to call this one the crime of being seen. In a system where everyone is guilty of something, justice is no longer about right or wrong, it's about who can afford to fight back. That's not hyperbole, it's the reality we've allowed to metastasize into every layer of our civic architecture. This episode is about a single example, about Phillip Risner, and the war that's been waged against him under the banner of law. It's not about just him, it's about what happens when municipal power is used not to serve or protect, but to punish, extract, and silence. Risner's story is an example on the surface. He owns property, he speaks out, he doesn't play the game, and for that he's been targeted relatively relentlessly. They didn't need to forge evidence against him, they only needed to describe evidence. In a courtroom that no longer demands proof, language becomes a weapon and silence becomes a sentence. Citations with no photos, fines with no due process, allegations with no investigation. It's lawfare, it's not law. Like Barry has said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. We're living that philosophy contemporarily. These new Blight ordinances, they're just another tool. They're not about keeping neighborhoods clean. They're about taking land, reshaping communities, and sidelining anyone who threatens the grip of a deeply embedded machine. A machine powered by invisible leverage, local corruption, and the normalization of injustice at large. Because if your own town wants your land, your vote, or your silence, they can find a reason. They can manufacture a reason. They don't need facts. They just need citations, a fine, and a bureaucrat without shame. They just need to describe it and pretend that that is the description of evidence. And when anyone presses for that evidence, it either disappears or was stated to have never existed in the first place without consequence. And if they can't get you to submit, they'll bleed you out in court until you can't afford to stand against them anymore. We've codified ambiguity so thoroughly that there isn't a person alive who couldn't be accused of something, and if they want you gone badly enough, they'll make sure that you are. Phil Risner is not a single example. His story is one you should hear, because it's one that many people are going to, and it's one that you can be exposed to if you become inconvenient to power at this juncture. Let's get into it. That's very good.
Here in Port Huron, I own property in Port Huron. We had a earlier segment, and I want to continue on what's happened in the last 11 years episode. Basically, that's what it is an episode with the city of Port Huron, and particularly the code enforcement department, who, by all issues that we see, it's really a money-producing system on the property owners, and I'd like to take you back to it probably about 2018, when they actually they had my money and was trying to give it back to me because they found out that I didn't owe it, and this is after they had confiscated it out of what they call a stockpile of money that had been given them for a different reason. And so we ended up, they made an offer to give me my money back, but I'd have to hold harmless any contractors or city employees, basically.
An NDA.
Yeah. Non-disclosure agreement. And at that point, it was only like $7,300 because that's all they had got up to that point. Well, there was some other attempts to pay some bills that they had said that I owed, and when I attempted to pay these bills, that they had already confiscated the money out of this other funds, so they refused to give me a receipt for my money, and so I continued to give them payments on it. So it ended up being about $22,000 when it was all.
You're talking about the fines related to the properties that weren't actually yours.
Yeah, billings, yes, billings on property that they did. They did what they call cleanup on. That I wasn't responsible for because they cited the property. Thinking that I was the owner, and actually it was next door. It wasn't even legit when they
because that property had already been taken by the city.
That was that on. There's two different pieces of real estate. In fact, both of them have city lots next to the property. So they got into a real confused situation there. And when I actually ended up putting my signs up, and I had about 20-some signs up describing what they said in court and the administrative hearings. And there was a lot of incriminating stuff, a lot of untruths that they spoke about. And so what we did is we transcribed it, what the hearing officer said, as well as what the plaintiff said, code enforcement staff. And so they were upset with me quite greatly because I had basically embarrassed them. So now they get this idea they're going to take my signs down. So they sent me a notice saying that I had signs that were in violation of the Blight commercial. In other words, they were claiming it was a residential property and I can't have what they call commercial signs.
And they want your signs down specifically, though, because they were utilizing evidence that didn't exist against you. They were referencing evidence in an intentionally erroneous way, so they would describe evidence that either didn't exist in a way that was meant to incriminate you, regardless of what the evidence actually showed or whether it actually existed. Yeah. And so they want to take that down because they don't want to make citizens that are the victim of the same tactics. It's certainly.
I mean, they can't deny the records when I put it on it. One of the signs that I had, it was not up now. Was what the hearing officer said when we went in there. He ended up citing it, and when I began to explain to him what was going on, of course he doesn't want to hear what I got to say. It got into where they were sending these notices to a vacant lot, which
intentionally,
certainly, and then it would go back because you can't deliver a letter.
Late fees.
So I would FOIA the letter that they sent, the notice, and of course I would get it, and I got a copy of the envelope, and it showed right there, return to sender, delivery unavailable, and so here they are. They know I didn't get this letter or this notice, so they just hang on to it. And so I only got it through what they call freedom of information. I saw any notification that they sent. And so when we went to the one hearing, before we even got too much into it, I asked the hearing officer. I said, "I'd like to ask you a question." I said, "Could you read what this says?" And he says, "I said, this is the notice." Of course, I have the notice. And had the address on there, vacant property. And I said to him, in fact, the city attorney was there too, and he was trying to control the circumstance.
What I've noticed a pattern is that they'll send these notices to addresses that they know that the individual won't receive.
Will not receive it.
So that they can essentially foreclose on the property.
Yeah.
And I've seen this cycle with other people, and then they offer these foreclosed properties. They end up getting purchased by the same 3 or 4 individuals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was at that one hearing we went into, and that was 2000, I think it was 18 or maybe just 17. I showed him this piece of paper. That they claimed that I had the complaint, and I said, "Would you read that?" He said, addressed to Phillip Risner, and he said 700 vacant lot, and he stopped because he realized it was vacant lot. I said, "Do you believe that mail notices can be sent to vacant property?" And then, of course, the city attorney jumped in, all his statements. so blah, blah, blah.
I'm going to try and pretend like that was...
Well, he was trying to cut me off.
As your official address was this vacant
There,
lot.
that's what it was. And it wasn't even my official address. It was a vacant lot.
Someone had typed that in for
And
you.
so what ended up happening was they tried to dismiss it, and before it was all said and done, I had several trips over to talk to the city attorney, and they were adamant that they were going to push this thing through. So they went ahead and issued a order for me to over and above all this business of false notification, stuff like that. So we ended up, I ended up sending the payment, which they billed me on it. They billed me this on this judgment, and I sent it to the code enforcement department, and then they started trying to send it back to me, saying, "You don't owe this. You don't owe this. You don't owe this." And yet I got this judgment says that I owe it. What they were trying to do is they were just trying to cover their tracks. That if we accept this, of course I always paid it in cash, so they can't hand me that cash back. They tried to send me a check. So, and when I wouldn't cash the check, they simply they were doing all that they could do to give me back this regarding this judgment. So the case actually moved on to where they ended up with I paid for all this sidewalk work that they claimed was my property, and I got photos of it. They sent me photos.
Well, did any sidewalk work at all get done?
There was. They claimed there was 16 sections of sidewalk on my property. It wasn't on my property. It was next door because it was a vacant lot, and if you look at it, it does appear as if that's like the south yard of the home that I own. So I ended up paying that twice, and we actually got into some ramifications where they...
because these are designed for the homeowner to never pay them and for them to eventually resolve
they
foreclosure.
They want to get it so confusing
so that they can take the house.
And so what I ended up doing, I repeatedly kept paying this in cash. One time I took it to the street department. It was $702 at that time. And within, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 hours later, whatever, that afternoon, after delivering it straight to the street department personnel that actually sent me the notice, I think his name was Doug Lincoln, he apparently hauled it over to the clerk, or to the clerk, and I think it was Susan Child, or it may have been Cindy Johnsick. That's who it was, Cindy Johnsick. She was the new incoming clerk. Well, she calls me on the phone. Mr. Risner said, "We've got some money here that you don't owe." And of course, I have to you got to lead them down the garden path. I said, "Well, who told you that?" She said, "Well, we're here. We want to give you this money back." I said, "You're not going to give me that money back." She said, of course, she said I didn't owe it, and so she was going to put it in the mail or something like that. So,
well, they want to give it back to you because in a lot of ways your situation is like a what is it called? Like a Rosetta Stone for a lot of the tricks that they utilize with these property and blight claims. So, because they've utilized so many different mechanisms of creating false evidence, really, and leveraging.
That's what it is.
Claims to foreclose on the property. And so if you take the money back, then it weakens the map that you have of what they do.
Well, anyway, as they attempted several times to give me the money back, and I wouldn't take it. So eventually, what ended up happening was they came and took my signs down on the 21st day of December, and I noticed it was very mild that day. There was no snow of 2023, and I just happened to be driving down the street. And I saw them taking my signs down. And so I jumped out, and I didn't have my cell phone. So I had to catch a guy coming down the street. I said, "Would you please call the police?" I said, "These people are taking my property." And so he called the police. The police came out, and I may have covered this before. They're removing all these signs, throwing them up on this trailer. And he goes over and talks to this inspector, Greg Hoppy, and he tells them, that, because this is all in the police report, that they were there to remove signs that had been placed on city property. It said that it was their property. They were just removing the signs and doing some cleanup on the lot. Well, the officer come over and asked me, and he says, I says, "Sir, that's my property. That is on my property." And he said, "Well," and I said, "Come over here. I'll show you right where the property line is." And you can't miss what it is. It's a bunch of posts there with all the signs on it, only on the left-hand side, nothing over on the this vacant lot they claimed it was on. And he says to me, this officer, of course, I can tell they did not want to hear anything I had to say. Said, "Do you have a survey?" I said, "Yes, I have a survey, but I don't have it with me." Well, he puts in the police report, "Mr. Risner told me he didn't have a survey." So it's a word game is what it is. And so what ended up happening, I ended up going down and filing a complaint. I think I actually came back, or before I left, I told Mr. Hoppy, I said, "I want my property." See, when they were taking my signs down, and he'd already thrown three of them up on the trailer, and he said, "I'm not going to give you these because they're already on the trailer." And he said, "I'm going to put them right here over on your property." And he said, if you don't come and get them in 24 hours, we're going to come back and pick them up. So I ended up going down and talking to the police, because the police officers would not do anything there when they were out there. I said, "You're going to have to go downtown." And of course, they've already had radio communications. Risner's coming, blah, blah, blah. Give him the Stonewall treatment. And I couldn't get anywhere with this, so I ordered the police report. That's when I found out they claimed that they come out there to clean up a city lot, but they were actually taking the signs down off of my property. And they piled the signs. There was about 5 or 6 that they actually did leave. They took them over and laid them on the driveway of the property that I own. And so that's where they sat for, and I took photographs of them. That's where they sat for, I think, a couple days. Then I ended up moving. And he said if I didn't move the signs, they would come back in 24 hours. In other words, I'm going to throw these signs over on your property, and if you don't move them, we're going to come back and pick them up ourselves.
The goal is to silence you.
Well, yeah, they really wanted to take all the signs down. Yeah. And so what ended up happening was I took the signs that they had left, and I moved them over on the driveway to another position. So now they come back with another complaint saying that I have discarded signs on, and of course it's all on record, and at the hearing. He said he has discarded signs on the drive. He said he needs to clean that up. This is a completely separate complaint.
So this is all an example of lawfare using
that's all it is. And
Blight ordinance.
So what ended up happening was we got into this thing about when he finally made another complaint on October 18th of 2024. It had to be 23, because it'd been going on about 8 or 9 months. We were back and forth to court, at hearing, and he puts on there that here's his violation, and among other things, not limited to shopping carts, mattresses, machinery, tires, debris, stuff like that. And so what I did was, before I even went to court, I FOIA'd photographs of these described items. on that day, on the day because they generally, a policy is if they something like that, even if it's a lawn, they take a photograph of it, because if it's 2 feet high, they can show the hearing officer. So I FOIA'd on such and such a date. I want to see your photographs that you took of such and such of this violation. We haven't got no records of that.
Yeah, because this is a whole game they play where they make descriptions of evidence that doesn't exist, and then the description becomes the evidence.
It's a word game, and so they had no photographs of that violation be there on that day. And so then they went back, and before it was ended up, I said, well, they've accused me of having shopping carts, mattresses, and all this stuff on my property. Well, when we went to court, code enforcement coordinator, of course, she jumps in. I don't understand it. I'm questioning the inspector. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, she thinks it's going to kind of go south, so she wants to jump in.
The kangaroo court.
And I said to Mr. Hoppy, I said, Mr. Hoppy, I said, you say where's all these shopping carts, mattresses? And she jumps in and says, well, that's just general language. I said, well, let's make it specific language. Am I going to get a general fine, or am I going to get a specific fine?
Well, so you can't say, because
first of all, she's not a witness to any of that. She's the coordinator. There's never been out there.
And you can't use general language for a specific piece of evidence.
That's the point.
The reason that's just a shield. And this is an example of kangaroo court where you have the arbiter or the judge or someone that's supposed to be a neutral.
Exactly.
And they're actually endorsing what is effectively the city's prosecution.
So because she wasn't ever out there, so how can she know? But it's a team effort, is what it is.
Yeah, well, that's what that
these people get together long before they even go in there, especially they got somebody they're going to have a problem with.
Intention, she's not supposed to be even involved in that element.
She's not supposed to be.
Answering for
She's a coordinator to send people out to do certain things. Here's your assignments for today. She's not a witness to any of that happened. So why is she entering evidence? Which, by the way,
because she's involved in a conspiracy, and that is the only reason you would respond like that. I mean, that it's as simple as that, and there's nothing else that explains it.
Well, but anyway, so what ended up happening was he ordered me to remove the stuff that's on the complaint. Well, it's not there. So there was no shopping carts. There was no, and that's what got me, shopping carts, multiple. Yeah. Mattresses, and that's all on the complaint. So about December the 2nd, I found a shopping cart alongside the street. And I said, you know what? They're going to fine me for a shopping cart that's on the property. Which, by the way, they would never show me any ordinances adopted by the city concerning shopping carts on private property.
Yeah.
I said, I'm just going to put one on the roof. I put it up on the roof because I'm protesting that they made this false complaint, and we actually went through that at the hearings. There was about 3 or 4 hearings. Mm-hmm. I'm doing that as a protest. If you're going to cite me for a shopping cart that did not exist, then I might as well put one on there. And then, of course, they still can't show me where a shopping cart on private property is in violation by any adopted resolution of the city council.
It has to be.
What they do is they make this stuff up in their mind, what they think is a violation.
It's written so that it's so vague that anyone can be in violation of it, and anything could be art, and then not as in violation of it, and anyone could be in violation. That's how they've written all the laws now.
So we have argued that is art, and so what has happened now is. My lawyer wasn't at one of the hearings, and this is what really, you have to. Somebody said you had to be around the block a little bit in order to understand how it works. The very hearing that my lawyer wasn't there, I said, my lawyer's not here. I'd like to. He said, why don't you come on down? Let's talk about this. I wish I had it on record, but
you need to start
interestingly, they don't have audio record of that particular hearing with me.
Oh, they will.
Oh, they got the rest of it all morning. The sessions,
recordings of all kinds here, and other places.
And so he said, Mr. Risner, I can do this verbatim. Mr. Risner, he said, I see your attorney's not here. He said, I think what we could do, he said, if you will go and take that shopping cart, now it's not carts, it's shopping cart, off of that building. He said something to the effect, he said, we'll if we have another hearing, he said, we will probably dismiss this. In other words, we're just going to let you go on this thing. We're going to dismiss it. And so what ended up happening was, when we came back the next time, I had my lawyer with me. One of the things I brought up, even before my lawyer had anything to say, I said, Your Honor, I said, I see you, you said that, of course, I had to order the FOIA, the order. Actually, he signed an order. It was not it wasn't a postponement. It was an order. I said, you signed, and what he said was, at the opening, he said, Mr. Risner said, your lawyer wasn't here, so we postponed the hearing. I said, no, you didn't postpone it. You issued an order. And on the order, it says, I am ordered to remove a shopping cart from the premises or put it in a enclosed building. So when I FOIA'd the audio of that hearing, they put on the response, denied, no records exist, staffing issues.
So wait, which one is it, though? Is it that it was denied, or is it that
in other words,
no
they had no record of the audio?
But that's different than denied, because denied implies that the records exist and they're not giving you access.
Well, they're just saying that this is the reason why we can't give it to you, because of staffing issues.
Those are three different answers. Staffing issues is different than denied is different than they don't exist. These are all different
You're right.
issues.
It just said it does not exist. It said denied, big capital letters, and then it says records do not exist.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though? That sounds like someone saying, well, how do we brush them off? And then someone just saying, just say denied, and then say, well, what reason are we going to use? Well, just tell them it doesn't exist. And for real. I mean, this is because if you're not going to say denied if the records don't exist,
but what he was doing, I know what he was doing. I mean, I've been around the block with this thing. The hearing officer, once he told me, I'm going to, Mr. Wright, if you do thus and thus, it was a conversation's what it was. And I really said very little about it. And I just went ahead and walked out when he got done with his conversation about moving this shopping cart. Well, when he did not know that I'd already FOIA'd the audio, because I wanted to know specifically what his hearing officer said at that hearing. Well, he was trying to cover it up by saying, Mr. Risner, we postponed that hearing so that your attorney could show up, as if the hearing did not happen. Yeah. And of course, I think he got a little upset with me when I kept saying, no, I said, you ordered this.
You have to, the other thing that isn't, a lot of these cases like yours happen with people that end up getting in trouble with the law at the same time. And so they're not able to do anything because they're incarcerated.
Exactly.
Or they get hit with contempt of court, and then they use that as a means to just steal their property.
So what ended up happening, just at this last hearing, we went in there, and he actually had fined me $620, three $200 fines, plus the administrative fee, whatever. And so we have a
for the shopping
order
cart?
For me to remove it. It didn't give me a date to remove it. It just says you were ordered to remove the declared violation, just to cover the whole thing, the mattresses, and because
the general language.
No, it's specific on there that these things are on this property.
So they can.
So while I was there, that was the hearing I had. This is the last time we was there. I said, Mr. Hoppy, I said, I tried to get you to come out there and show me where this stuff. I said, because that stuff does not exist on the property. Mm-hmm. And so my attorney, he went ahead and made a few statements about it. But anyway, well, the order simply says a fine, and that Mr. Risner, doesn't have a date on it. He said Mr. Risner must remove or store in building this violation. Mm-hmm. That's specific what was actually on the complaint. Well, it doesn't exist to begin with. And so within 4 days after Thursday, that was Thursday, the next Monday they come back with another complaint of a different inspector. Because
they need to add
I know what they're doing. What they realize is their first inspector has just it's went south on him.
Yes,
because now he can't argue anything.
They need to add credibility.
Because he would just rather run this thing through, and we'll have a different inspector. Because you see, now they're going to say you can't ask him any questions because he's not involved with this.
Create another fire. Yeah.
So that next Monday they sent me another one, and. It says that basically as part of the same. There's no mattresses, but it just simply says shopping carts, remnants of wood, metal, and plastic, and just something about debris or stuff like that. So I want to know where did all this other stuff go in 4 days?
Yeah.
4 days between Thursday and the next Monday, and all of a sudden this other stuff's all back on this property again.
Well, this is what happens.
That didn't exist to begin with.
Well, it's because they violated the very spirit of the law. Is they're assuming that you're guilty before when the stuff didn't even exist in the first place. So it's absurd. The whole thing's become absurd.
So now what happened was they sent me this... They said that on the bottom, it was called a cover sheet. It says on it, and of course I got a copy of it. And I said, says if you have any questions concerning this matter, this violation, said to please contact this telephone number. Said we can discuss the compliance of this matter. Blah blah blah. So I called in, and of course you're going to get the same story. Put me over on his voicemail. Mr. So-and-so, I'd like for you to call me. You sent me this notice that I should call. Blah, blah, blah. Of course, he's not going to call back. So I put two of them in there. And then I said, you know what you'd better do? You might as well write that man. And so I did it. I wrote him about 6 in the last 2 weeks. I wrote him about 6 letters, of course, with proof of service. Hauled it up to him. Had a copy for the hearing officer because I wanted the hearing officer to hear what this man. Doesn't he answer his phone?
Well, not only that, but they're advancing a corrupt agenda. But hold on, we're going to have to break this into another thing because this card can only do 30 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
So I just need to pause it, and then we can restart it.
Yeah, okay.
Because what'll happen?
Go. What we're going to do with this matter is he's refused to answer my request for him to contact me. I said, would you, and of course in the letter, the notice, I put a notice in there to him saying that you have stated in your complaint, the copy of the complaint, that these items are on the property, and I went to the property on such and such a date. This is July 11 of this year. I said, I went to the property. I can't find that stuff on that property. I said, there was about several different things. The shopping carts were one thing. Of course, I just keep changing it because, he says this is on the property. And I said, please contact me concerning this notice that you sent me, that if I have any concerns about this compliance. See, I'd like to comply with that. But I need him to show me. Now I got a pair of glasses, but even when I use them out there,
I still can't find it.
I still can't find them. So I said, I want you to notify me concerning the appointment to come out, and you can show me where this stuff is at. Well, she's not going to. So on yesterday, this is after all these letters, just take them up there and serve them. I went up yesterday and I said, I need to talk to Mr. Egypt. Of course, a little foot soldier goes back there, and here comes Mrs. Husson. She said, how can I help you? I said, I need to talk to Don Egypt. Mr. Egypt is not in right now. Of course, and here's the story. I mean, you probably heard it. We've been so busy. I said, I need to talk to him about this watch, because she said, Mr. Risner said he has got 16 different inspections he's got to do. And I wish I'd have had a videotape. She probably wouldn't have said this. And one of the guys one of our inspectors is off on a medical leave, and the other's on vacation or something to that effect. And said he's got 16 inspections. He says he is so busy. Okay. So she says, well, maybe I can help you. Of course, I'm just going to go ahead and lead her down the garden path. Anything she says, I can use against her. I mean, this is the way police procedure is, and then I won't use anything that she doesn't say. I said, I want you to come out there and show me where, I want him to come out there and show me where this violation is. And she said, well, maybe we can, she what's the address, such and such and such, and she says, one night, Mr. Rice, she says, I can't do it today. She said, but maybe tomorrow. She says, I said, well, I want him to. She said, well, I'm authorized to do it. I can do that. I said, well, she's not the complainant. She's not the one complaining about it.
That's true. It'll be just another...
I want the complainant out there, the man that's going to be in court.
Yeah, he's going to be another...
And then you don't get to what they call secondhand information, hearsay. So she went on and on and on about she has the authority to do that. She said, what I'll do, she says, if I come out there and said, I don't see what's on the complaint, she said, I'll get back with you. And of course, I should live so long to get back with me. I should live so long. But anyway, that was what is actually up to today. But it's getting pretty serious because they're trying to say that this shopping cart that I'm supposed to have on my property is not artwork, and this whole city has got artwork all over.
Well, the way that
there's I know, in fact, I got a photograph of it, and we got it. We're going to use it in court if we have to. Concerning one of the things they say in their complaint, it says, or not intended to be used. Yeah. In other words, you have something on your property that's not intended to be sold, manufactured, or used.
But then they also allow for art and other things. It's intentionally vague, and it's meant to allow for them to prosecute anyone. It's all
what it is. It's the way they use their terminology. It's all in the way they speak.
So it's subjective based on their interpretation.
Conjecture is what it is, and of course they're going to convince the hearing officer, because he's always going to come down on their side.
Well, it's all rubber stamping, yeah.
Well, sure. Because you see, the hearing officer's already upset with you because you're taking up all these people's time. They got better things to do. They got other people they need to find. We want to get you out. But so what we did is we went up the street the other day, and
all of this urgency is manufactured too.
We took a picture.
It's not real.
We took a picture up here on the north end of this fella has one of these old time push plows that you would use,
and it's
I don't know if you put it behind a horse or something like this. I was from Kentucky. I knew what. I noticed it, so I took a picture of it. And it's out on the easement. Mm-hmm. It's not even in the yard. Mm-hmm. He's got all this crushed stone around. It's a piece of art that he has placed on the easement.
Well, that's the point, is that it's the blight and all these ordinances are arbitrary.
Yeah.
It's meant to be interpretive so that they can charge anyone they want to. Yeah. And so they can use it as a tool of lawfare, as a weapon.
So if they write him up, that thing is not to be manufactured or used. I didn't see anybody that was doing anything with it. It was in other words, that plow wasn't being used.
Yeah.
Do you see my point?
Well, yeah.
In other words, if you can't use this, then it's blight.
It's an impossible to define distinction that is exclusively being utilized as a mechanism of harassment.
That's basic. And what they're trying to do is they try to wear people down. That's the whole idea.
They're stealing properties.
Huh?
They're stealing properties.
Basically, that's what. And what they will always try to do is they get people to where they fear property loss, And so, even if it goes over into a foreclosure, even if it was a bad judgment, they didn't pursue it, and they put it on tax lien. So they'll go in there and they'll say, "Well, I'm going to have to pay these taxes because it's already been decided."
Well,
you have no recourse unless you go into what they call your freedom of speech, your protected speech, because see, they've determined that shopping cart up on that roof, which wasn't there to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a gag.
It has nothing to do with art. I beg to differ.
That's exactly. It's subjective. You could never define art, and so by including the word art in the description makes it absolutely arbitrary and defined by the inspector themselves.
Yeah.
Which really, there's actually precedence.
But it's a freedom. As well as art. It's freedom of speech. See, I did that out of protest. They said in their complaint that I had shopping carts, plural.
Oh,
yeah. Now, when you went to school, you learned that S on the bottom of it, the back of it, means multiple. There was no multiple carts on the property.
Yeah.
In their description now they finally got it down to remove the shopping cart. Period. Yeah. So we got it down to one. There was no shopping carts. Now we got it down to one, and that one was not even on there when they made the complaint.
You got it as a gag to parody.
I got it I wanted to show them that their claim that I violated that on the 18th day of October of 2020, it has to be 2024, was false.
Yeah,
it's vague, it's ambiguous, and want of clarity.
There's no evidence in the first place. The only evidence is the description of the evidence that doesn't exist. But
why didn't they? You see, isn't it amazing how that with my property, they don't take no photographs?
Yeah, because there isn't evidence. So of course
there was no evidence on the 18th.
Just manufacture a description of evidence that doesn't exist.
And if I
This is a corrupt system functioning as it's supposed to.
That's
not failing, but succeeding. Because its goal is to harass you and to distract you and to essentially, you got caught up in a system that was meant to disenfranchise someone else of their property. They assumed that the property owner was non-local and they could just take the property, which they were able to do because you had that quick claim, right?
Yeah.
But then they started fining you for that property, assuming that they could get that adjacent property as well. Yeah. And leveraging the ambiguity between the two properties.
It's ambiguity is what it is.
Yeah.
As they determine that...
ambiguity and might makes right.
Huh?
Ambiguity and might makes right. The fact that they're leveraging all of this institution to pretend like...
it would be like
gaslight.
It would be like them citing a person. They have a unregistered motor vehicle on their property. Well, all right. What about a riding lawnmower?
Yeah.
Well, it's a motor vehicle.
Are you going to go around and you're going to check?
What about an electric bicycle?
What happens if it's in the garage?
But you see, with the way they said
what
is
about the carport?
They got the rules of unregistered vehicles. What they mean by cars or vehicle,
Are they
truck.
Going to go around checking every single property and every single backyard?
And so, in the hearing officer's mind, he has a let's just say an unregistered motor vehicle. Well, you can't register a riding lawnmower, but it doesn't matter. Did they tell the truth about that?
There's no relationship between... I know you're talking about the unregistered vehicle. There's no relationship between that and blight ordinances because you can have an unregistered vehicle on your property. There's nothing in the blight ordinance that stipulates
They
that.
get it now to where you can't have a flat tire on a riding lawnmower. It's inoperable.
Is it explicitly stated?
It talks about inoperable.
Okay.
And the code enforcement officer said, "Oh, it's got a flat tire.
Yeah.
You can't use
what
that."
What I'm saying is they don't use any specific language. All the language
no,
is intentionally vague.
It's so generalized.
So they can say this person didn't violate it if they're on the team, and this person did if they're not on the team. If they're complicit with this exploitive, corruptive paradigm that's been enforced in the city, or then they can, violate these laws, and then if they're a problem to this hierarchical control system.
Well, I want to move on just briefly, maybe take about 10 minutes on another episode of this. And of course, this is another part of the equation. I I guess my name is what they call a buzzword with the city. Mm-hmm. Every department knows who I am. I mean, they relay this stuff back and forth that I'm supposed to be a troublemaker. Because there's times that I went in there and all of a sudden this other person knows all about, a situation. Yeah. It's kind of like when I went up to get some information from the code enforcement, and I call her a little foot soldier. She's the secretary there. I don't have her name. I said, I want to talk to the supervisor. I don't know. Well, she was insulted. She says, you don't talk to me like that. She said, I'll call the police on you. Oh, of course I did. I said, well, okay. So I walked down to the basement and told the receptionist there, I said, I want to talk to a police officer. She said, what about? I said, because I need to go upstairs and I need an officer with me because I've got a request to speak to somebody. And so it took about 10 minutes or so finally he come out, a young fellow, I don't know his name. Yeah, can I help you? I said, yeah. I said, I want you to go up with me, or an officer to go up with me. I said, because, see, I didn't want to discuss this with her without an officer being there. She said, you're going to call the police on me. And he started asking me this question. He said, well, what's this all about? And I said, well, I just want somebody to go up and... And then he starts telling me something that I know he had to have talked to her about.
Yeah.
And he said, well, such and such and such. I said, well, who told you that? Well, I'm not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
And so finally he kind of calmed down. First he got real rude. And
because they're framing you as...
So what ended up happening was he said, just a minute. After you call, he got very rude, like I'm here just causing trouble.
And then they probably threw a bunch of accusations at you in order to motivate.
Yeah, that's what it is. See, they want to get you upset.
Or he's already aware of the.
So he says, just a minute. He walked. I seen him walk over to the elevator and went up. Must have went to the 4th floor with Mr. Freed and Mr. Haynes were. Anyway, they both come out of the elevator with him, and. Mr. Freed said, oh, Mr. Risner, how? You said, how can I help you? I says, I need somebody to go upstairs with me. I want to talk to, I need some information. And he says, what's this all about? I said, I need to talk to somebody upstairs. He says, Mr. Risner says, you can walk anywhere in this building. Well, how did he know anybody said something to that effect? So when I went up and talked to I think, and I'm not certain, but I believe it was Mrs. Husson. She says to me, Mr. Risner, you're not supposed to be on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, see, this is like unverifiable permission, and then you have a case of restricted access immediately.
I said, who told you that?
They're trying to trap you.
Well, she says, what I did is I went out and I wrote a Freedom of Information request for any writ of another writ of a court order barring Phillip Risner from making his presence on the 3rd floor of City Hall. Otherwise, he'd be in violation of some court order. I wanted to see the court order that said that during business hours that I do not have the freedom to be anywhere in the building. Well, they come back and say, well, we ain't got any of those records.
But, their tactic is likely to
But why would she say, I'm not supposed to be on the 3rd floor? Do you mean to tell me she can tell me?
Well, what might be happening is that they're encouraging you to make a bunch of absurd FOIA requests that they can then use to create...
Well, they got enough of them.
...proof of your insanity.
They got enough of them.
They'll use this as proof of your insanity. To say, why was he requesting...
Well, they've already accused me of that.
And then
they've already accused me of that.
They're creating a paper trail of your insanity by baiting you to make FOIA requests.
I'll just throw this in briefly. I talked to a lady who's supposed to be...
Seriously, that's part of the tactic, though. Watch out.
I talked to a lady who was involved with that property next door somehow. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. She called me I was surprised, it was on the first day of July, or first day of January. She said, Mr. Risner. I said, yeah. I said, this is Mrs. So-and-so. She said, I'd like to know what you have as far as documents concerning this certain property. I said, well, who are you? And she told me. And she says, I said, well, do you have any records of? She said, well, I'd like for you, if you want to show me. She said, if you want to show me what documents you have, she said, I'll let you have that property. Who is she?
Who did she say she was?
She told me, but I won't say it right now. I'll save it for court. Because anyway, she says, well, I've already talked to the city, and they're telling me you're a nut job.
No, they're setting you up.
The city told me you were a nut
and they're
job.
showing her all these FOIA requests.
I said, who told you that? She says, well, I'm not going to tell you.
Who is the Husson lady? How do you spell her last name?
Husson.
Husson. Okay.
Yeah. So what they've already labeled me as a troublemaker. I've got psychological issues.
Yeah, no.
I want to just throw this in real quick concerning Mr.
So they also have a lot of
Mr. Egypt.
Yeah. Okay.
He says he told the police officer, we got it. Well, we got it on record. We got an audio record of this. When they asked him about what was going on, he said, Mr. Risner has lots of psychological issues.
You need to take this more seriously, because I know someone that was forcibly and involuntarily committed for sick. I know actually multiple people that they've used exactly this cycle to commit them.
Yeah.
So, and including the FOIA requests even.
Yeah. Is this still on?
Yeah. I'm just saying though.
So let me tell you what he said. He says, he told this police officer, Mr. Risner has lots of psychological issues. And the officer said, yeah, 100%. It sounds like it. This is the officer that's answering him when I tried to make a complaint. Then he says,
it's called priming.
Mr. Risner goes down and he gives the city lots of money that he does not owe. He's given them thousands of dollars that he does not owe. Where's this code enforcement officer doing? Where's he getting all this information from?
Well, because this is a coordinated effort of psychological operations meant to make more politically malleable the entire, population. So he's getting his information from other individuals that find you to be potentially problematic to the. Well,
they want to keep. They got to keep each other updated about Mr. Risner.
They want to gaslight you.
And then the other one was the issue with the man that just tried to. Well, he assaulted me. Is what he did. With the contractor.
Trying to bait you into fighting him back.
He come up to me and stuck his finger in my face and said, and I won't repeat what he said because I don't use that language.
Somehow, and then he calls the cops and you.
And I said, who are you? He said, I'm the guy that took all those signs down. And he told me he was going to assault my body.
Trying to create.
And I said, well, why don't you go ahead and do it?
He wants to create.
And he was so angry with me. He said, and you better stop sending me letters.
So he's trying to inspire you to attack him so that they can
he was hoping I would respond.
Trying to inspire a psychological.
And he said, and you better stop sending the city letters about these signs.
Yeah.
He's a contractor. What does he have to do with it? Why is he representing the city?
He wants you to ask all these questions, right, to yourself.
So that's when he turned around and walked away and went over. And that rest of that episode ended up where he assaulted me.
Say everyone's against me and everyone's blah, 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 because there is an element of truth to that. Because there's a massive amount of coordination that's enabling exploitation. That's what it ultimately is.
Yeah.
They're exploiting people that are in vulnerable positions.
So he ended up, that particular episode, we've got court records of it. I think I haven't got the body cam yet when the police officer arrived, but they completely turned the tables. That I was a troublemaker, and that contractor was doing this work. And when he got done telling his story, made me look like
you need a phone that records. You need to start recording like immediately when you engage with the police every time when you should because this is going to be how.
So he accused me of coming on the property where he was at,
which is probably nowhere near where you were.
That he said he'd come on and I was trying to get on my truck or in my truck or to remove a license plate from my truck.
Mm-hmm.
So when she asked me, I think it was Officer Kuhn. I think it was Kuhn. I could have been.
Oh, the lady?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, she's
Cynthia Kuhn.
There's a lot of interesting stuff about her.
Not the former lieutenant.
Yeah, with the...
Marcy. No, this is a different one.
She blonde?
Relative of sorts, I think.
She blonde?
It's an odd name. Marcy's got to be a relative, I believe. She comes up to me, and she says, I need to see your phone. I said, for what? She said, you taped this.
They're assuming that you did. They wanted to make sure that you didn't. So that was.
They wanted to make sure if I had the phone and I did tape something,
but they'd know
that they would have it up. They'd already they'd heads up on it.
Yeah.
And I said, why do I need to do you that? I said, give you that. She says, because I said you said. I think that's what I said. You said that you taped this altercation. And I said, are you going to arrest me? Well, no, but... and so somehow he told her in the police report, now this is what the officer tells me in the report.
Yeah.
When we approached Mr. Risner told us that he was assaulted while grabbing a license plate.
Yeah, so they're going. This is another example of evidence through.
I wasn't grabbing a license plate off of anybody's vehicle.
But they make it out as though you had conceded that by the way they say it.
That was what she said in the report.
Exactly.
I didn't say that to her.
They use the reports to redefine what really happened, and then they'll pretend like it was recorded, and then no one will actually look at the recordings because the descriptions are right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they'll lose the recordings.
And so I told the officer that I'd been assaulted, and she was just nonchalant about it. And the other officer, he actually went over and talked to him first.
Well, it's gaslighting.
And then he comes over and I said I want him arrested for assault. He said we can't do that, simple assault. There's new law. We can't do that.
Well, they arrested me for an accusation of simple assault.
Yeah,
it was actually.
See, they do when they want to.
Yeah,
but they found out he was a contractor. And I guess they knew he was kind of intimately involved with my case.
Yeah,
and so they wanted to make it look like I was over there taking a license plate off of his vehicle.
Yeah, because...
And they said that I told them.
Yeah.
That I was taking... While I was grabbing a license plate, I was assaulted.
This is what you should be absolutely expecting. Because, all right, so there is a patterned system, like I should show you some of the documents that I have, where... This is what you should be expecting, is a coordinated effort to gaslight you and make you look crazy and create a paper trail.
Yeah.
And so the cops that are responding, right, there's not a real call, because then they could have a real cop, right? So they're coordinating that police report with a police officer that's already engaged in that.
So what ended up happening on that, they claimed that I got the police report, and it said a
friendly and complicit
per doorbell camera. So this is part of what it said.
Did you FOIA the doorbell?
Across the street, there was a doorbell camera that caught 17 seconds of Mr. Risner was crossing a lawn next door and stood in the driveway taking pictures of trucks. I believe it was trucks, multiple. And I FOIA'd I wanted to see the video of this doorbell camera that they went back and said he went back and he gave him the doorbell camera. We can't get under certain privilege. We can't give you that.
They're saying that it's
and
national security.
So I went and appealed to Mr. Freed. Mr. Freed, his first answer was, well, Mr. Risner said that was a part of the public record of the police department, and we can't give you that.
What? That's like discovery.
That's exactly what it is. Said, we can't give you. They said, that's a part of the police department records, and it's not available to you. So maybe I shouldn't even say this because he said I was standing in the driveway taking pictures of his truck or trucks.
Yeah.
And he had it on his. I questioned him. I said, and he's supposed to be a witness. He said that they'd ask him for it, and he gave it to him. I said, well, is there any way you can give me that? He said, yeah, I'll give it to you. Because he was taken back because the guy had assaulted me the way he had, because he witnessed it. And so I got it. And they be walking across the line. If you wouldn't even know it was me if I didn't point it out. And I wasn't standing in any driveway.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have a camera to even take pictures.
Exactly.
Said he was taking pictures standing in the driveway of these trucks.
They're trying to use it to intimidate you, to gaslight you, and to make you feel like you're crazy.
And of course, as long as they video of what they claimed.
Well, they would never made it available to you, and they're never going to bring it into the police
they're not going to make it
available.
They're never going to make it available.
It's only going to be a description. They did this with me multiple times, where they'll destroy the evidence itself and just keep the description until they steal whatever you have it on, because they just did that to me. But this is about to run out of time.
All right.
I think we're good. This
okay.
This is the Huron statement. Have a good...